All right, welcome everyone. Thank you, Ian. My name is Bob Bench. I'm the founder and CEO of Radius. I am very, very happy to be here with John McBee from XDC and my very long-time teammate, Anders Brownworth. So, I want this to be a flowing conversation. There's three of us. It's a fairly open room here, so let's get weird. This will be fun. What I really want to talk today about is what problems is crypto solving for foundation models and the applications being built on top of foundation models? And then alternatively, what are foundation models and the applications on top of foundation models solving for crypto? Aside from there being a lot of venture capital in both buckets, and for founders like me, really appreciating the fact that there's some VCs do want to sprinkle both in each pot. So John, I'll start with you. You've been in industrial automation, you now with XDC. Purely on the applying crypto to artificial intelligence systems application, where do you see is like the sweet spot that you all are looking for?
So I think one of the, low-hanging fruit is going to be as we enter into an agentic economy where we actually have these agents, a pool of agents that are working on my behalf, doing things that I would typically be doing day to day. They need to be able to source information from the outside world. And so how do they get that information? This is all stuff that's kind of being built into existence in real time right now. But one of the primary resources that we have is MCP servers, Model Context Protocol, and that allows agents to communicate with the outside world and leverage existing APIs for different services. And so if I have this pool of agents that are acting on my behalf, they need to be able to go and discover the services or the resources they need to do the tasks that I've given them, and they need to be able to, in some cases, pay for those services. And I think that is a nice sweet spot for how agents can leverage crypto as a form of seamless payment, either agent-to-agent payment or agent-to-service payment via MCP discovery. That is currently being built up right now. And there's room there for crypto to come and play. I think there's a large use case for stable coins to come and play there. Then you see traditional finance coming as well with Visa and MasterCard building out agentic solutions that are going to use traditional rails. And so this is all coming into existence right now, which is extremely exciting. And one of my roles with XDC is education and developer relations. And how do we get people who are really well-grounded in blockchain on the XDC network to kind of see this larger landscape that's coming into focus so that they can look for the solutions they want to build for the future. And so we try to expose them to, this is the technology outside of your comfort zone. This is how approachable it is. This is how you introduce it into the applications you're already familiar with. But I think that's one way that crypto can come and work with an agentic economy.
So specifically with XDC, how do you see XDC playing a role for the agentic economy?
I honestly think that, like I mentioned, stablecoins are going to probably play the biggest role, and we're going to see L1 tokens almost act more like gas than a native transfer of value, and we're probably going to see, apps that want, or agents that want to pay each other with stable, take advantage of that 24/7 uptime that blockchain provides, be able to, ideally, in some cases, use something like ARC, which is Circle's new L1 that they've created, where you can actually pay for gas as USDC, which I think is a really nice feature. But one of the things XDC Networks has just done is integrated with a USDC, and I think one of the main benefits there is going to be opening up the opportunity to build apps that hopefully have a little bit of stickiness to keep some of that USD flowing over XDC for agentic purposes. And that's going to be a struggle that all L1s have, is how do they get a pipeline that keeps that business on their L1? What is the value proposition that's going to draw people to come and transact on their network? XDC is focused on trade finance, they're focused on real-world asset tokenization, but they still need to have these sticky dApps that are going to keep the business flowing over their chain.
Anders, you've been looking at this now for, we started at Radius looking at agentic commerce about a year ago after Ramesh at MIT told us, this is coming, what are you building? what are the unique, like, say you have a stable coin dealing with agents, what are the product requirements that are unique for agents as opposed to, say, you and I flinging some tether at each other?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's counterintuitive. You might think that, okay, I go to an AI agent and I'm going to say, hey, book me a trip to Singapore, whatever. Maybe it buys you your plane tickets, your hotel. Not really. Like, it does, it can, but that's not really agentic payments. What it really is, in my opinion, is, okay, so we're going to make a trip. So we got to find out, well, what are the places you want to see? What is the weather likely to be, et cetera? All of those things, right now, some of those things are of lower quality, available on the open internet for free. But as AI agents really scale, they're going to end up, pretty much making that ad business not tenable anymore, and those data sources will, cease being so free and probably become a little bit better. So if I can an agent can buy the weather forecast or can find out what the weather is right now at a certain place, et cetera, that's the kind of, agentic commerce that I see coming. It's really not a, let's do this large purchase this ticket, purchase this hotel. It's really all of the little bits of information that I need to look up. Well, when is that museum open that I wanted to see, et cetera, et cetera. All of those tiny little things. Your one AI request might end up in 10, 20, 50 small kind of micro transactions that coalesce the data necessary to make the overall, better output, the decision. So it looks very different. It kind of, it doesn't look like something where I take a USDC and simply say that, I'm going to use that to pay for my plane ticket. It's really something that, really looks a lot more like microtransactions, I would say.
So kind of to drill down on that. So I go on Claude and I pull up my MCP server and I say, all right, I'm flying to fix my trip to Singapore, to your point. That's not one transaction. That could be 50 or it could be 1,000, depending on how many requests that calls for from data.
Yeah.
How does that happen when your ETH transaction costs you $4?
It doesn't. That's a good little segue there. So, right, it really does need to operate on the, at least under a penny per transaction, or else this whole thing is kind of, dead on arrival, right? So, the ideal system here would be something that is able to do, extreme volume. And, we were working at the Federal Reserve on a central bank digital currency. Turns out that for the dollar, there's, 8 billion users of the dollar. It's like there's a lot of people. And those 8 billion people could make, certainly hundreds of thousands, probably millions of transactions per second at peak. So you need a system that's able to be in that range. And if you have some kind of limit where you say, well, look, we can get up to 1 million or more, and no more, that's really not going to win, right? So you need something that can scale. But before you need to scale, you also need to be able to do that at, tenth of a penny, 100,000th of a penny kind of levels, or else this whole thing really doesn't work. So, that's the technology that we've been working on for the past few years now. And right, turns out that counter to popular belief, you can actually do that. You can have that world. You can, make a system that runs in the multiple millions of transactions a second and clear payments for, way, way less than a penny.
So kind of to summarize, one way to handle the agentic economy question is you go really fast and really cheap in a step change. That's slightly different than trade finance and RWA. As far as the XDC build, what are the unique requirements? In addition to Circle, saw you guys have kind of one of the first chains to adhere to ISO 20022. Like, what do you think when you talk to users, the BlackRocks of the world, the Maersks of the world who do those types of products, what are they asking for from XDC that's going to help that future of automation?
Good question. I'm not typically the person talking to them, but I think a lot of how you get into those conversations is who you have in your network. And traditionally, that's been one of the stronger points for XDC in those, and especially in trade finance, is it has people that are in traditional trade finance that are already participants of the XDC network. And that's opened doors, it's made connections. And so you have that trust. For adoption, you need to be able to solve a use case. And so we see things like there's a Trada token, which was invoice factoring on chain. So there are use cases being built up to be proof of concepts to show that these things can work on blockchains, that they're trusted, that they can be adopted. And I think we need to keep building those out. I don't know what triggers adoption like on a mass scale for XDC in this world, but it's something that we're trying to unlock.
So back to you, Anders, as we think about agentic commerce as it kind of is growing, at least in conversation, at least on the Radius side, we're seeing there's a lot of white space that needs to be built. There's a lot of conversations, not a lot of builds yet that are ready for the real time. On the risk side, like, what do we need to be worried about? Like, if we launched, say, they launched on USDC, say we launched on something like USDC. What do we need to worry about the risk side when agents start moving our coins that we weren't ready for when we launched USDC back in 2017?
I don't know how to answer that. There's, it's a completely different world from when we launched USDC to begin with. We launched USDC on the Ethereum chain only at the time. There's a few of us. It wasn't like a, large operation like it is now. Some of this kind of harkens back to the last interview that was going on previous. You have to look at the risk framework of all of the systems that you're using to clear the money, right? Back in the day when it was just Ethereum, that was a very specific thing. I would argue probably pretty quantifiable. It's a lot harder now. You could talk about what does the singleness of money look like across all of these systems. You have some systems that are public permissionless, incredibly neutral, low transactions per second, high cost, but others that are, you trade some of that for a bit of centralization, a little bit less on the fees, a lot faster, things like that. So you have this giant spectrum. It's a lot harder to model and figure out what is what. So then, the open question, I guess, is $1 on this system exactly the same or transferable one-to-one to another, right? The primary dealers, the issuers of stablecoins would say yes, they are, because they're able to mint and burn on any chain, so it doesn't really matter. But that's not how people evaluate stablecoins. They're evaluated on the secondary market. What can I trade some Tether for, some USDC for on these different chains, et cetera, and that's where you'll see the risk expressed in the difference in price, I guess.
What type of risks do you all see on the industrial automation side for application of stablecoins?
I mean, typically with industrial automation, we're looking at not so much moving value over blockchain as information, right? So it's not as applicable to this conversation, but I'm looking at ways to get inference closer to the data source so that we can try to predict, say, when a set of pumps on a system is going to fail based on how they've acted in the past. That's kind of what I look at and why I look to bring AI into that world. It doesn't directly translate to the blockchain conversation, though.
All right, so I'll ask a basic question to you, Anders. Why do we need a blockchain for this?
Well, you want to go to a blockchain when you want credible neutrality. I think blockchains sell neutrality, right? They sell, essentially a trust layer. You would want to not go to a blockchain when you don't want that, that you want to pay for that, right? So when would you not want that? Well, if you're buying a house, you want a blockchain because you want the irreversibility, you want the, that trust that you get. But if you are buying a weather forecast for a penny, that's okay. I don't need a blockchain because I don't want to pay for the reversibility of a penny. Like that doesn't make sense. Like I don't want to have to pay multiple pennies to move a penny. That's now a not profitable operation. So basically what I'm talking about is as volumes go way up and the value per transaction goes way down, you don't want a blockchain. As the values are high and the throughput is not like, into the millions of transactions a second, you want a blockchain. So.
Thoughts on that, John? Blockchains versus non-blockchains for moving value on artificial intelligence systems?
I mean, that's really well said. It makes sense to me. And actually, I never thought of it the way you explained it first off, where a lot of agentic transactions will redefine how we actually think of transactions in general. Because you're right, demonetizing the web by not caring about advertisements, moving most of the internet transaction to be agent to agent instead of human to website, changes how the web has to work. And I'd never really considered that you need these microtransactions. You need a market around how you can even go in and get the data that you want. And you need discoverability of that data. So you need almost an entirely new technology stack to enable this agentic economy. It's really interesting.
So I think kind of going forward, that thesis of value on artificial intelligence systems, we've talked about discovery of data, we've talked about discovery of inference, markets for those things. One thing that happens every time there's a major technological change is incumbents get displaced, often very fast and very violently. I guess I'll start with you, John. Like, who is the company with 50, 60, 70% operating margin in the S&P 500 that becomes a lot less important in 10 years from now because of this technology?
I think you could pick a lot of these. I think that creating a startup, I'll start with a small scale. Creating a startup today is very difficult because most ideas that I've had for how to apply AI to what I want to do, they end up getting written by the frontier labs and rolled out to me virtually for free, the cost for the subscription. And now you're seeing things like the way that the internet's monetized, that's changing. OpenAI is talking about building their own browser. You see things, traditional business tools like Word or Excel, those are going to be changing too, and it looks like we can start to build that into an OpenAI offering as well. And so there's huge disruption. Last month, my 8-year-old daughter vibe coded a game for the web. And that's crazy to me that we're at the point now where you can have bespoke software. You have an idea for anything, a game or a product, and you can create your own on demand when you need it, and you can use it. And that disrupts a lot of how today's economy functions. When I have a desire and I can just bring it into existence with the help of artificial intelligence, it makes it a lot more difficult to have those billion-dollar companies unless they're building out the infrastructure for this AI.
Yeah, I suppose there's two ways that this could go. One is we could, watch the whole thing blow up and kind of forcibly rip over to a new thing, or we could have an orderly transition where one system becomes less and less used and important, and it sort of fades off into the sunset, while another kind of picks up the slack and goes. I'm much more interested in that. I'm not a burn it all down kind of guy, right? So the question I don't think is like who gets drastically upset. Some probably will, and I'm not good at like forecasting the future. I'm an engineer, so I don't do that well. However, I think the long term is, the question is really how do you infiltrate and how do you turn the ship on some of these large operations that, essentially will be disrupted if they don't do something. That's the more interesting play, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the most noticeable one I've seen in recent history was not that people like Anders and I are watching Circle's share price very closely as former employees, but at one point Circle was 30 times the valuation of Western Union. Western Union still is about $2.5 billion in market share, and Circle at one point was, I want to say, 60. And Western Union has physical offices in every country in the world and 17,000 employees. So I think a lot is coming definitely for the people who move money and the people who move information. before I go to questions, because I like questions, they're fun. This is partially an AI conference. Anders, I know you have strong feelings, so I'll let you start on this one. You know that I'm Team Anthropic. I reach for Claude every time. What is your default when you reach for a foundational model system? Which one do you go to first?
Open models. I don't like the privacy implications of a ChatGPT, Anthropic, et cetera. So I use open models for most things, just run it myself. That doesn't solve everything. Oh, those are some great coding models, by the way. Doesn't solve everything. Works great if you're on an airplane, you don't have an internet connection, they haven't got Starlink yet. That's fantastic. But, so you have like a couple of features, but really the problem is privacy. I don't want to leak information.
John?
I agree. So I tend for accessibility. When it comes to education, something accessible. So Gemini, I use Nano Banana for image generation, and Veo 3 have been mind-blowing to me. Just the multimodality that's coming out right now is insane, where I can literally generate any video or image that I want exactly when I want it. And so I spend a lot of my time with Gemini. For work, I tend to do more with OpenAI and with their APIs. Really, that's more of a business decision, though.
What did your daughter do her game in?
That was OpenAI. So that was when they introduced GPT-5. Just coding through their canvas to make a single file application is so simple. And then iterating over it, its ability to remember what you like, what you don't like, and to only change the things that you want changed was new to me. Typically, you have all sorts of trouble when you start to iterate with these things. And so I was really impressed with GPT-5.
Interesting.
All right, so we have about 5 minutes left. We'd love to hear questions if you all have them. The three of us have been in this space for a while. I think I read the Bitcoin white paper about a mile from here in 2010, and I tried to start a Bitcoin practice. There wasn't a lot of Bitcoin legal work in 2010, but I tried that back in 2010. So any questions?
Will SaaS be obsolete in the future? Will SaaS be obsolete in the future if we can program immediately?
All right, will software as a service be obsolete? Anders?
No. No, I think what will be obsolete, though, is a single large software code base used for everyone. That'll be out. That's on the chopping block. If you have a system that can effectively dynamically change per customer, then what does that look like? A giant system where every individual user is treated completely differently as per their requirements or requests, et cetera. So can you sell that as a service? Yes, absolutely. So no, I don't think so at all.
I think one thing that I've been most questioning is the sales model of software as a service. The fact that these organizations spend an incredible amount of their CapEx on sales revenue, or actually salesperson's compensation, I think that is going to be dramatically changed. Other questions?
So Cubic Coin recently did a demonstration, they called it, when in taking over, they claim they took over close to 51% of the Monero network. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that, we should be concerned about the capabilities of AI and blockchain working together to attack other networks, blockchain or non-blockchain? And do you think, how do we protect, or do we protect, historical coins, right, like Bitcoin and Monero, from those type of attacks?
Yes, we love the conversation, 51% tax. Anders and I have spent a lot of our lives thinking about 51% tax. Anders, I'll let you hit this because you've lived it much more closely than I.
Yeah, so you have, should we be concerned? Yes, absolutely. We need to understand the risk framework that you're working under. With the blockchain, the consensus being overrun with a 50+% attack, that is a thing, right? But what can you do if you do that? Can you, create a new transaction that spends somebody else's money? No. Can you include that in the canonical chain? no, you can, but it's not going to last. You have to keep the attack in force. So no, if you could get a complete capture, then yes. But it's a constrained set of things. You've seen a number of coins that kind of become 51% attacked and then they're not, and then they're 51% attacked and then they're not. That's not a great place to do business. We have to be very concerned about that for the sort of the majors, I'll call them. But that's not sort of the end all be all, right? So the other consensus that you have is effectively not a distributed consensus. It's a centralized system, right? And that has a whole series of attacks too. You can come in and like take out whatever that single player is with a hack or something, or you could go after them from a legal perspective or something like that, right? Because that's the ecosystem within which they're playing. I think the important thing is go in with your eyes open. Understand what the consensus mechanism is of everything that you're using, even if that consensus mechanism is lawyers in the court and sort of judicial process. That is a consensus mechanism for the permission space. So you just have to look at what they are and understand what they are. And should we be concerned when they get? Yes, we should absolutely be concerned, because these things provide capabilities that you can't just get anywhere else. So you don't want the very top, the majors, to really suffer from something like that. But yeah, I mean, that it is possible is true on the permissionless decentralized side, and also true on the centralized side, just in a different way.
One thing I love about 51% attacks, and I do think they're a feature, not a bug, is you learn real fast who's actually decentralized when a system gets attacked. Right? When you can reorder your chain in a matter of hours, I strongly question whether you're decentralized. If BTC gets 51% attacked, which it really just does, it's attempted attacked every day. It's a really large mining pool and it's really hard to do. If someone succeeded in 51% of attacking Bitcoin, it'd be really hard to undo that because it is generally that decentralized. I mean, Coinbase would have something to say about it because Coinbase is holding a lot of the world's BTC, but that's interesting. But I think Sui rolled back in 45 minutes. Solana's validator test was mostly through one validator in Switzerland, right? I think the cool thing about 51% is that if it actually works, it proves the thing was decentralized. And that kind of proved Monero was mostly decentralized. Vertcoin was decentralized because that went through. But if code is law in the sense of blockchain, in the blockchain world, then you need to uphold the law and don't reverse it. That's my view on it. So I love the fact that 51% attacks exist because it actually shows whether you're decentralized or not on a proof of work standard.
In DeFi, Circle is the centralizing force in DeFi.
Correct.
Because if Circle says, I'm not going to redeem on this chain, instead I will redeem on this fork of the chain, then that fork of the chain becomes the true chain. So how D is your DeFi?
And when we're at time, but I think that's a good ending point, which is, artificial intelligence systems, whether it's foundational models and applications on them, are going to give you offensive and defensive capabilities there. Usually the attackers start the fight, and they're pretty good. And I think we'll see a lot coming up, but I think it's exciting for the future. I want to thank John. I want to thank Anders. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Ian Kane. Thank you, City of Quincy. This is great.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.